fois contrainte de me défaire de ce bijou qui pour moi
The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, a 1964 movie musical shot in beautiful pastel Technicolor on 1.66 by 1 aspect ratio in French. This movie was a pleasure, really. It was so much fun. First thing I ought to tell anyone about it, if you haven't seen it yet, what you should know going into it is you'll go into it thinking this is just going to be a musical. This is just and it's gonna be so predictable, and it's gonna be so mushy and melodramatic. You're right, it is. It gives you all the musical tropes, it gives you everything you expect, or maybe even that you want. But by the time you get to, there are 3 acts. The first act actually takes up the first 2/3 of the movie, believe it or not. The rest of the movie is, by musical logic, a complete free-for-all. It's all over the place, and it's not really what you expect from a melodramatic romance, let alone a melodramatic romantic musical. Second thing I should add, if you're going into this and you don't know Jacques Demy and his style, and just sort of the aesthetic that his films take on, it is quite gay. I'm speaking to the gay sensibility. It's not camp. It's sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It's just wholesome and effeminate. It's so much less aggressive, and everything is just so much prettier. So that's what I mean by gay. Jacques Demy was married to another French New Wave director, and her name was Agnes Varda, but it's clear that he wasn't straight. Aside from that, it's actually not got the same amount of pastiche and wonder as The Young Girls of Rochefort. I'm seeing this movie for the first time, and it's not really my favorite out of the 3 that I've seen now. I loved it. I thought it was excellent. And I thought it was really cool, and I loved the story, and that after a certain point it was completely unpredictable. But I prefer The Young Girls of Rochefort, at least for its aesthetic, because, you know, with this kind of director, with directors like Jacques Demy, directors like Ozu, directors like Wes Anderson, style is substance. So if it's to be judged on that, and that's part of what I judged Chungking Express on last week, then yeah, this really wasn't my favorite. Directing and the choreography, there's no dance, but the choreography of the blocking is phenomenal, and it's just so cool. I'm gonna, here, look at this shot actually. This shot, there's you know, Guy, or Guy in French, God, he's in the background, he's visiting Genevieve, he's visiting Genevieve at her umbrella shop on his bicycle, and you know, I mean, look at this. I thought he's still in the shot while she's I think it's very cool. There's no overt dancing, but the blocking is so phenomenal, and it's not even blocking. You can't even call it that. It's choreography. It's beautiful. That's not the problem. The problem I had was actually everything that was superficial. The acting was tremendous. The writing was melodramatic but surprising. Also the soundtrack. The soundtrack is phenomenal. All of these things that I love and that are usually the foundation of a valid film criticism, I don't think they're very important in this scenario. I think what's important is the look of the film, the style, and the artifice. And this movie doesn't have enough. Here's the thing, and I'm not going to spend much more time on this. The difference is that this movie is the enjoyment and the entertainment and what it serves to an audience is really based on its style and its aesthetic and the superficial qualities of it. So in that regard, this is definitely the inferior movie to The Young Girls of Rochefort. As a film, though, like I said, writing, acting, directing, cinematography, everything here, I think, is much less ambitious, obviously, because of the budget, but it's a lot more impressive than Young Girls of Rochefort, because Rochefort doesn't really have any twists and turns like this one does. The ending of this movie is a total, like, curveball. And if you haven't seen La La Land, which completely rips off everything Jacques Demy ever did, and now that I've seen 3 of his movies, I get more and more frustrated with... I love La La Land. I loved it when it came out. And now the more Jacques Demy movies I see, the more angry I am at the notion that La La Land is even an ounce original. It's not. It's really not. Anyways, but the ending is a gut punch and totally out of left field. But like I said, if you saw La La Land, you won't be that surprised, unfortunately. So on a technical level, this movie is really great. The writing, like I said, is total melodrama, but it has enough twists in there where it's sort of it's at its heart, this is a French New Wave film. So the entire time it's playing with the notion of what a film is, because, you know, they were doing that. Every so often, Demy will sort of like poke his head from behind the camera and say, "Boo!" and kind of just remind you, you're watching a movie. Yes, it's filled with cliches, but Demy is not unaware of that. He's not naive. He's still making a very poignant and surprising film. I would recommend it. I still recommend it, but if you're only ever going to watch one Jacques Demy movie or musical in your entire life, I say watch The Young Girls of Rochefort. Heterosexual viewer discretion is advised. I'd give it 3 stars out of 4, because it surprised me here and there, but the style is what was missing. Another thing I should mention really quick is there are some killer shots in this movie. The opening shot, like one of the coolest opening shots I've ever seen. And the soundtrack too. I should also mention that. The soundtrack is really great. It's just... this is a sad song. Watch it if you want it. I liked it. If you want to watch a Jacques Demy film, which I think everyone should in their lifetime, especially if they like musicals and musical theater and gay stuff. The next movie that I'm going to be watching, and that you should also watch, is following this theme that I've started out, Chungking Express, Umbrellas of Cherbourg's heartbreaking ending, and this next movie, I'm sort of doing a thing with, I don't know, alternative romance films. I do want people to watch these movies that I talk about, and I understand the past 3 that I've done are old. I mean, Chungking Express is from the 90s, guys, seriously, but I do understand how pretentious the selection is at the moment, because they're old and they're all foreign. I realized, I had the startling realization yesterday that I have not reviewed any movies in the English language. So, you know, I hope your thirst for Western vernacular is quenched when we watch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Just trying to keep it modern for you guys.